I caught my brother and my fiancée together in my bed. When my parents blamed me for ruining the Christmas mood, I made a decision. I cut off all contact and uploaded the recording to social media so family and friends would know the truth. I'm a pilot. My job is to make decisions at 35,000 feet with dozens of lives depending on every move. You're trained to compartmentalize, to keep a cool head when everything around you seems to be on fire, to assess the present without losing sight of the next 3 steps. That training is what held me together on December 23rd. I was coming off an overnight flight from the West Coast. We landed at 6 a.m. Normally, I would have been scheduled for shifts through after Christmas. But another captain called in sick and they reshuffled the roster. I got off earlier than expected. Around noon, I texted Catelyn to tell her I was on my way home. She didn't respond right away, which didn't strike me as unusual. I assumed she was doing last-minute shopping, getting everything ready for Christmas Eve dinner at my parents' house. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was set for February. Everything was paid for, the venue booked, deposits made, her dress already fitted. I felt stable and secure. A good job, a beautiful fiancée, a close family. I'd even made plans with my younger brother, Michael, to watch a game later that week. Everything seemed exactly where it was supposed to be. On the way home, I stopped to buy white pink roses, her favorite. I pictured her smile when she saw me walk in without warning. I thought we'd spend the afternoon together before the typical holiday chaos kicked in. I'm not usually the surprise type, but that day I felt calm, like my life was finally in order. When I pulled up, I saw Michael's truck parked in front of the house. I didn't panic. He lived 20 minutes away and sometimes dropped by without warning. I figured maybe he was helping Catelyn with something, hanging lights, moving furniture. He'd always been that kind of brother, or so I thought. I opened the door. The house was silent. No music, no TV. I called their names, first hers, then his. No answer. Then I heard a sound coming from upstairs. It wasn't voices, something else. My stomach dropped, but my mind snapped into focus. Assess. Confirm. I climbed the stairs with slow, controlled steps. The bedroom door was slightly open, just a few inches. It was enough. Michael. Catelyn. My bed. Our bed. They were so locked into each other they didn't notice I was there. I didn't yell. I didn't make a sound. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and recorded. 90 seconds. Their faces clearly visible. The audio clean, no room for interpretation. Michael's tattoo on his left shoulder, the one we got together after our dad's surgery. Catelyn's engagement ring catching the afternoon light. I captured everything. Then I backed away silently, went downstairs, walked out of the house, and sat in my car. I parked a few streets away and stayed there for about 10 minutes. I expected rage, pain, something, but all I felt was a cold, absolute clarity. I reviewed the video. Confirmed the time, 2:14 p.m. I uploaded backup copies to 2 different clouds from my car. Then I texted Catelyn. Baby, the flight got extended. I won't be home until the 26th. See you tomorrow at my parents' for Christmas Eve. Love you. 7 minutes later she replied. A heart. I miss you. Can't wait for tomorrow. Another heart. 20 minutes after that, Michael texted. You around this week? We can watch the game and grab a drink. I stared at both messages, then at the video still open on my screen. Neither of them knew I'd been there. I had 72 hours before Christmas Eve dinner, where they'd both sit at the family table pretending everything was normal. 72 hours to decide exactly what to do. I started the car and drove to a hotel on the other side of the city. I checked in under my name, asked for late checkout, and sat on the bed with my laptop open. The footage was safe. Backed up. Michael texted again. Bro, you good? You're acting weirdo. For the first time since I'd walked into that house, I smiled. I wasn't the one who needed to worry about being good. They did. They just didn't know it yet. The morning of December 24th, I spent getting ready. Pilots don't improvise. We follow checklists, so I made mine. Evidence secured. Done. 3 cloud copies and the original file. Timeline documented. I went through 6 months of messages. Screenshots of every excuse. Every I'm busy. Every I had errands. The patterns were obvious now, Tuesdays and Thursdays, right when I was on overnight routes. That weekend in October when I flew to Denver and she said she was visiting her sister? Michael had posted a picture in a bar 6 blocks from my house. I consulted an attorney, an old flight school friend who now worked in family law. The call lasted 20 minutes. The house was mine. I bought it before the engagement. The ring had to be returned or I could demand it legally. The video was completely legal. My property. My security system. You're covered, he said. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m. The place smelled like cinnamon and pine like every year. The nostalgia lasted maybe 1 second. Michael's truck was already there. So was Caitlin's car. I walked in like nothing was wrong. Caitlin was in the kitchen laughing with my mother. When she saw me, her face lit up. She crossed the room and hugged me, said she missed me. I hugged her back, smiled, kissed her. Michael appeared from the living room with a beer and clapped me on the shoulder. There he is, he said. I didn't think you'd make it. I wouldn't miss Christmas Eve, I replied, looking him right in the eyes. Family is the most important thing, right? He smiled and nodded. During dinner, I watched every gesture. Michael told work stories. Everyone laughed. Caitlin touched my arm, playing the perfect fiancé. My mother talked excitedly about the wedding, asking about last details. I nodded, answered, smiled, played my role, while no one, absolutely no one, suspected what was already in motion. My father asked about flights like nothing was out of place. I told him about turbulence over the Rockies. Normal conversation. A normal-looking dinner. No one would have suspected a thing, except for the fact that I didn't let go of my phone all night. I kept it in my pocket, ready. After dessert, I stood up. Can you all stay seated for a moment? I said. I need to talk to everyone. My mother frowned immediately. Is everything okay, honey? Yes, I said. I just need your attention. I pulled out my phone, walked to the TV, and turned on screencasting. I'm going to show you something real quick. What is this now? My father grumbled, already annoyed. I didn't answer. I connected the device and hit play. The sound filled the room first. Then the image. Caitlin screamed. I'm not exaggerating, she screamed for real. She lunged toward me, trying to snatch the phone, but I stepped back in time. No, I said firmly. Michael went completely pale. He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. Turn it off. He barked, his voice cracking. Sit down, I said. My voice didn't shake. I didn't shout. It was cold, controlled. The video ran for barely half a minute before my mother grabbed the remote and shut off the TV in one violent motion. First there was silence. Then chaos. What were you thinking? My father exploded, at me. No, at Michael, recording them in your own house. That's an invasion, my mother added, her voice sharp. That's unacceptable. I stared at her without blinking. They were in my bed. In my house. And that's what you're worried about? Michael started crying. Actually crying. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, he babbled. It wasn't planned. Just happened. You didn't want what? I cut in. To sleep together? Or to get caught? Don't use that language here, my father snapped. Caitlin had collapsed over the table, covering her face with her hands. Please, she sobbed. Can we fix this? It was a mistake. I made a mistake. How long? I asked. She didn't answer. How long? 4 months, Michael whispered. 4 months. 1/3 of our engagement. My mother stood and put a hand on Michael's shoulder, stroking him like he was the victim. These things happen, she said. People make mistakes. You don't have to turn this into a disaster. A disaster, I repeated slowly. It's Christmas Eve, my father cut in. You're going to ruin it for everyone. You can't handle this privately? Wait until after the holidays. I looked around the table. My aunt and uncle sitting in tense silence. My mother comforting Michael while he cried. My father watching me like I was the problem. Caitlin still sobbing. Not one person on my side. You want us to pretend tomorrow nothing happened? I asked. Open gifts, smile for pictures, protect Michael's feelings? He's your brother, my mother said. He made a mistake. Are you really going to throw your family away over this? Something opened inside my chest. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I'm not throwing anything away, I said. You already did. I walked to the door. Don't be dramatic. My father shouted. Sit down. We'll talk like adults after Christmas. No, I said without turning around. We won't. I stepped into the freezing air. Behind me, my mother was yelling something about selfishness, about destroying the family. I got into my car, pulled out my phone, and opened an anonymous account I had created earlier that afternoon. The video was ready. The caption was already written. December 23, 2024. 2:14 p.m. My brother Michael and my fiancée Caitlin. In my house. Merry Christmas. Tags prepared. Michael's profile. Caitlin's. Mutual friends. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. If you do something stupid, you'll regret it. Think about your family. I looked at the message. Then the post button. I had nothing left to lose. They'd made sure of that. I posted it, without hesitation, without thinking twice. I locked my phone, drove back to the hotel, ordered room service, and slept better than I had in weeks. Christmas morning, I woke up to more than 200 notifications. I didn't read a single one. I started making calls. "Hello," I said when the event venue picked up. "I'm calling about the February 14th reservation under my name. I need to cancel everything." The coordinator went silent for a few seconds. "Sir, it's only 7 weeks away. You'll lose all your deposits." "I understand. Cancel it." "May I ask?" "No. Just cancel it and email me the confirmation." I hung up before she finished her sentence. I wasn't being cruel, I just didn't have the mental space for explanations. At that moment, every extra word was noise. I dialed the next number without hesitating. Photographer, canceled. Catering, tried to renegotiate, canceled. Florist, asked if I was sure, canceled. DJ, paused then said he understood. Cake baker, sounded genuinely disappointed. Everything cut. One by one. Like closing tabs in a browser. 45 minutes. $6,000 in deposits gone. Money I wouldn't get back. And still I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. No relief. Just a strange, almost clinical clarity, like someone had shut off the emotional part of my brain and left only logic running. Then I called a locksmith. "I need all the locks changed at my house. Today." "Today? It's Christmas, man," he said. "That's holiday pricing. I don't care what it costs. How long until you can get there?" He gave me a time frame. I accepted without negotiating. I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment. It was absurd how a life built over years could be dismantled with a few simple phone calls. 2 hours later, I stood in front of my house. The locksmith worked efficiently, unaware of the history behind every door he removed. Caitlin's car wasn't there. I wasn't surprised. She was probably still at my parents' house, surrounded by comfort, telling everyone how I'd exposed her, how I'd made her look bad, how I'd overreacted. I imagined it without guilt. I paid the locksmith in cash. Took every new key and slid them carefully into my pocket. The metallic sound felt final. Caitlin had free access to my home, my space, my life. Not anymore. My next stop was the bank. 6 months earlier, Caitlin and I had opened a joint account strictly for wedding expenses. It felt adult. Responsible. Each of us contributed what we could. I deposited close to $20,000. She'd put in around $8,000. We never kept exact track because, in theory, we were a team. I went in, asked to speak to a manager, and calmly explained what I needed. I withdrew exactly the amount I had put in. Not a dollar more. I left the $8,000 untouched. It was hers. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything that could turn into a future argument or a moral claim. While I was there, I handled something else. "I need to cancel an automatic payment," I told the account representative. A monthly transfer. 6 months earlier, my father's business had hit trouble. He asked me to help with the mortgage, just until things stabilized. Since then, I'd been covering $1,200 every month, automatically withdrawn on the first day. She checked the system. "Are you sure? The next payment goes out in a week. Cancel it now, effective immediately." No drama. No questions. Just a click and a confirmation on the screen. Done. Then there was Michael. Michael had asked me for $8,000 back in January. Said he urgently needed it to fix his car and cover rent. Promised to pay me back in 6 months. He never did. 11 months had passed. I didn't push him. I assumed he'd eventually make it right. Family, I told myself. I opened the message thread where he'd asked for the money. Read his words again. Took screenshots. Then I sent them to my lawyer with one clear instruction. Draft a formal demand letter. 30 days to pay. If he didn't comply, we'd file a claim. His reply came quickly. "Merry Christmas to you too. I'll have it by the 27th. By midday, I'd cut every financial tie linking me to any of them. No shared accounts. No automatic payments. No informal loans. No safety nets. No rescues. They chose Michael. Now they could carry him themselves. I settled back into the hotel. I left my phone face down on the table. I hadn't unblocked anyone. I hadn't read messages. Still, I knew the video was already spreading. Posted hours ago, quietly but unstoppable. My lawyer had been clear. The video was legal. Was my house. My property. Michael and Caitlin had no reasonable expectation of privacy in my bedroom. They could scream, threaten, rage. Legally, they had nothing. I opened my laptop in incognito and checked the post. Over 50,000 views. Shares nonstop. The comments were brutal, merciless, relentless. People tagging Michael's girlfriend. And then I remembered. Erin had been with him for 2 years. The comments were tagging her directly, begging her to watch. Someone tagged Michael's employer. Someone else found Catelyn's professional page. She worked as a freelance graphic designer. The link was already there. New comments popped up every few seconds. The spread was uncontrollable. I closed the laptop. For one brief moment, a tiny part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if I should have handled it privately, quietly, like a mature person. Then I remembered my mother's hand on Michael's shoulder. My father's steady voice telling me I was going to ruin Christmas. Their choice had already been made. I simply responded to it. I didn't go too far. I went exactly far enough. I powered my phone off completely. I didn't want to witness the chaos in real time. I didn't need to. Truth doesn't need a show. It just needs to exist. I left the hotel and drove without a destination. I ended up on a highway heading north. I rolled the windows down despite the cold, radio off. The silence helped me think about what I'd really lost. 4 years with Catelyn. Memories that now felt fake. Every promise, every I love you, every future plan, contaminated. My brother, the kid I taught to ride a bike, defended in school, helped without question, gone. My parents, people who were supposed to back me no matter what, who taught me family meant something, gone. Or maybe I hadn't lost them. Maybe I'd simply seen them clearly for the first time. I pulled into a rest stop and sat there, staring at my powered-off phone. I knew that within 24 hours I'd turn it back on. I'd read the messages, the apologies, the rage. I'd see what was left of their lives. But right then, sitting there, I was free. No wedding. No lies. No fake obligations. Just me and the road. I took a deep breath, started the engine and drove on. When I turned my phone back on, the world would be different. And I was ready. On December 28th, I turned my phone back on. 547 notifications. I was sitting in a roadside diner booth with a cup of coffee gone lukewarm, scrolling while I watched the disaster unfold in real time. The video had completely exploded. More than 70,000 views. Shared over 800 times. What started inside my personal circle jumped first to local community groups, then wider social media networks, and finally someone posted it on a dedicated forum for cheating stories. The comments were brutal, unfiltered, merciless. Your own brother? That's disgusting. The audacity to show up at Christmas dinner after this. Hope they both end up alone. But it wasn't just strangers throwing hate from anonymity. People I knew, people who had known Michael and Catelyn for years, were in there too. Erin, Michael's girlfriend, commented directly on the video. Her comment was pinned among the top ones. I was with you for 2 years while you were doing this. It's over. Don't contact me. Don't explain. It's over. Hundreds of reactions. I kept scrolling. Catelyn's best friend wrote, I can't believe you did this to him. I can't even look at you. One of Michael's old college friends added, Bro, what the hell is wrong with you? Then I saw my cousin Marcus's comment. He had been sitting at that same table on Christmas Eve. I should have said something that night. I'm sorry I didn't. You deserved better. I took a sip of coffee and kept reading almost automatically. Michael posted a long apology on his own profile, carefully worded, full of predictable excuses. That he'd made a terrible mistake, that he was going through depression, that he never meant to hurt anyone, that he was seeking professional help. The response was even harsher than on my post. Depression doesn't make you sleep with your brother's fiancée. You're only sorry because you got caught. Therapy doesn't fix being a bad person. Someone tagged his employer, a regional insurance company. I checked his profile. His job title was gone. Updated the day before. He'd been fired. Later, Marcus confirmed the details. The company had a strict social media conduct policy. They considered his actions damaging to the organization's image and values. They let him go on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. Erin, I learned later, had called him screaming the moment she saw the video. She told him he'd wasted 2 years of her life, that she planned to let him propose the following year, that he'd destroyed the best thing he had. Then she blocked him everywhere. Catelyn reacted differently, quieter but just as drastic. Within 48 hours, all her social media was gone. Facebook, Instagram, everything deleted. I asked a mutual friend. Catelyn had gone back to her hometown several states away and was living with her parents again. She hadn't left the house since arriving. She's devastated, the friend wrote. She can't function. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That I felt sorry? My parents tried to control the damage. I heard through extended family. At a post-Christmas gathering at my aunt's house, they tried to frame the story as if I'd been vindictive, as if I'd overreacted, as if it all could have been handled privately. They even dropped the classic, "Men are like that." But the video didn't lie. My aunt, my father's older sister, confronted them directly. "You knew what was happening and you told him to stay quiet. You defended Michael. What is wrong with you?" My grandmother, 82 years old, was even more direct. She looked at my mother and said, "You raised one son to betray the other and then you blame the victim." My parents left before the gathering ended. Humiliated. Hours later, my mother managed to text me before I blocked her again. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I replied calmly, "No. Michael did that. You just chose him." I sent it. Blocked her number again. It was the last thing I ever said to her. Not everyone turned their back on me. Marcus called, not texted. He actually called. I know you probably aren't taking calls, but I had to say this. What I saw on Christmas Eve, how they treated you, was wrong. I should have stepped in. I didn't. I'm sorry. I stayed quiet for a moment. Anyone saying you overreacted wasn't sitting at that table, he continued. They didn't see what I saw. You did what you had to do. I thanked him genuinely. If you need anything, he added. A place to stay. Someone to talk to. Help moving things. Or just a beer. I'm here. 3 friends from flight school sent similar messages. Solid guys who'd known me for years. They saw the video. They didn't judge. They just asked if I was okay. I started to understand something important. The people who truly mattered stayed. The people who didn't, never really had. The biggest surprise came from Aaron. Before Catelyn deleted everything, Aaron messaged me on Facebook. "I know this is weird and we barely know each other, but thank you for telling the truth. I deserve to know. Michael lied to me completely. I'm sorry you got hurt too." I replied, "I'm sorry for you too. You didn't deserve this." "Neither did you," she wrote back. December 31st. New Year's Eve. For the first time since everything came to light, I was alone in the house. I'd been avoiding it, too many memories, too much Catelyn in every corner, but I knew I had to start reclaiming my space. I walked through every room, the living room where we watched movies, the kitchen where I made breakfast, the bedroom where I found them. I expected pain, rage, something intense. I didn't feel any of that. Just a strange emptiness, like a huge weight had been removed, but the space it left behind was still adjusting. In the distance, the first fireworks started. Midnight was approaching. My phone buzzed. "Marcus, how are you tonight?" I replied, "Honestly? I'm good. New year, new life. I'll be fine." I sat on the couch while the countdown started somewhere in the city. Then, a year earlier, I'd been at a party with Catelyn, kissing her at midnight, planning our future. 3, 2, 1. Fireworks lit up the sky. I sat there in silence, breathing deeply, ready to start over. I sat in the absolute silence of my house, silence that felt different from other days. It wasn't emptiness and it wasn't peace exactly. It was simply the absence of other people's noise. There was no one to kiss before bed. No pending family call. No message asking about flowers, suits, or guest lists. No wedding to plan. No explanations to give. Just me sitting with myself, breathing without interruption. And for the first time since December 23rd, I slept through the entire night without waking up once. I didn't open my eyes in the middle of the night with my heart racing. I didn't replay scenes, phrases, looks. There was no anxiety, no persistent knot in my chest. I just slept. Deep, steady sleep, no images, no jolts, rest I couldn't remember having in months. I woke up on January 1st with sunlight flooding through the windows, lighting up a house that no longer felt Ina, no longer felt like it belonged to someone else. The day felt clean. No. Like the new year drew an invisible line. I stayed in bed a few minutes, watching the ceiling, listening to my breathing, noticing something I hadn't expected: clarity. Not euphoria. Not extreme sadness. Just clarity. I picked up my phone almost out of habit. One new message. Unknown number. I opened it with the same calm you use for an irrelevant notification. It was from Michael. The message was long, too long to read in one breath. It wasn't a simple "I'm sorry." It was paragraph after paragraph, as if he'd been rehearsing those words for weeks. He said he knew I'd blocked him. He said he got a new number because he needed me to read it, just once. He apologized over and over. He said he'd started therapy, that he was trying to understand what led him to do what he did. And then he admitted something he'd never said out loud. He'd always been jealous of me. Always. According to him, I had everything. A stable career, a solid relationship, our parents' respect. Meanwhile, he'd felt invisible for years. He said it didn't justify anything. He claimed he wasn't using it as an excuse. But he needed me to know he was broken inside, that he didn't act out of conscious cruelty, but out of insecurity and resentment he didn't know how to handle. He listed what he'd lost like he needed to convince himself the punishment was already enough. Aaron, his job, his reputation. He said he was living with our parents again. He couldn't find work. Everyone in town knew what he'd done. Even people who didn't know the full story had seen the video or heard rumors. He said he went to therapy twice a week. He said he couldn't sleep. He said he missed me. Missed having a brother. He begged to talk just once. He wasn't asking for immediate reconciliation, he said. He wanted closure. He wanted to know if, even in some distant future, forgiveness was possible. He admitted he didn't deserve it. But he asked anyway. I read the message twice. Once with attention, once with distance. Then I set my phone on the kitchen table and made breakfast mechanically, eggs, coffee, toast. Simple motions. Routine. Concrete. I didn't reply. And I didn't block the number right away either. Not out of doubt, but because I didn't feel urgency. I just left it there, like an object that no longer held enough emotional weight to require an immediate decision. 3 days later, he sent another message, shorter, asking if I'd received the first. He said he needed a response. Anything. I picked up the phone and typed a direct sentence. You don't get closure from me. Live with what you did. I stared at it for a full minute. Thought about sending it. Thought about how it would feel for him to read it. Then I deleted it without sending. Not because I wanted to be the bigger person, but because I understood something clearly. Responding was still giving him something. And I didn't want to give him anything anymore. I blocked the number. Michael didn't deserve an answer, not even a final one. January blurred into February, the month I was supposed to be counting down to a wedding. Instead, I took extra shifts at work. I volunteered for flights no one wanted. Overnight routes. Endless layovers. Silent airports at 3 a.m. 14-hour days that left my body tired and my mind strangely calm. Staying busy wasn't running away. It was moving forward without staring backward more than necessary. It was Marcus who told me Michael moved 2 states away. He couldn't find work in our city. His name was tied to the scandal now. Even in places where people didn't know the details, someone had seen the video or heard the half-story. Small town. Long memory. He applied to 37 jobs, Marcus said one night over beers. They only called him back 3 times. No offers. Then he added he'd seen Michael when he came back to get his stuff. He lost a lot of weight. His posture had changed, aged. He looks 10 years older, Marcus said. Seems fair, I replied. Marcus didn't argue. Catelyn. I didn't hear anything for a long time. Her absence was total. Silent. Months later, her sister messaged me to apologize on her behalf. She said Catelyn deleted all her social media permanently. She worked retail now, lived with her parents, didn't go out, barely left the house except for work. She's not the same person, she wrote. She's empty. I read it without satisfaction or pity. Just distance. In March, something happened I didn't expect. I was in a grocery store in a different part of the city when I ran into Catelyn's mother. Pure coincidence. We saw each other from opposite ends of the produce section. For a second I considered switching aisles, but it was too late. She walked over. I braced for confrontation, accusations, defense. None of that happened. Her eyes filled with tears as soon as she reached me. I'm so sorry, she said. For what my daughter did to you. I thought I raised her better. I really did. I'm ashamed. I didn't know what to say. She kept talking like she needed the words out of her system. She said Catelyn wouldn't talk about it, avoided deep conversations, didn't truly apologize, and she barely recognized her anymore. But she needed me to know one thing. If she'd known what was happening, she would have stopped it. I deserved better. I appreciate you saying that, I replied carefully. But I don't forgive her. And I don't need to. She nodded, wiping her tears. She said she understood. Apologized one more time and walked away. I stood there holding a bag of apples, feeling something I hadn't felt before. Closure without reconciliation. Even her own mother felt shame. Mid-March, my mother showed up at my house without warning. I saw her from the window. I didn't open immediately. When I did, I stood in the doorway without inviting her in. It's been 3 months, she said. Not even a hello. Straight to reproach. She said this had gone on long enough. That we were family. That I couldn't cut contact forever. That I was exaggerating. That Michael was my brother and he'd made a mistake and I'd made one too by not protecting him. I started to close the door. This ends here, I said. She put her hand on the door to stop it. Told me I was being childish. That this is how brothers are. Fight, hurt each other, forgive, move on. But Michael didn't fight me. Michael betrayed me. And she justified it. I removed her hand from the door before she could say anything else. Don't come back, I said. I closed the door and locked it. I watched from the window as she stood there for nearly 2 minutes, motionless, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. Finally she turned and walked to her car. That same night my father texted me, "You're acting like a child. Grow up and forgive." I blocked his number. That was my last contact with any of them. At the end of March, Catelyn returned the engagement ring through an attorney. No note. No apology. No explanation. Just the ring in a plain box. I sold it the next week. I donated half the money to an organization that supports people dealing with betrayal trauma. The other half I saved. Michael never repaid the $8,000 he owed me. My lawyer filed in small claims court. Michael didn't even show up. I won by default. I framed the judgment and hung it in my home office, not out of pride but as a reminder. Some debts don't get canceled with words. April arrived without asking permission. 4 months after the discovery, I started hiking trails on my days off. I joined a weekend hiking group. I met new people who didn't know my story, who saw me as just another guy who liked being outdoors. I started therapy, not because I was broken but because I wanted to process it in a healthy way. One day my therapist asked, "Do you regret posting the video?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Do you miss them?" I took my time thinking. "I don't miss who they were," I said, "because those people didn't exist. I miss who I thought they were." She nodded. That's a healthy perspective. At work, things were better than ever. I was promoted to senior captain. My record was clean, my evaluations excellent. I was offered a training position to mentor new pilots. I accepted. I liked the idea of teaching not just how to fly, but how to stay calm when everything is collapsing, how to make hard decisions under pressure. I realized I was good at it. I started dating casually, nothing serious. Coffee, dinners, conversations without expectations, without rush, without demands. I was rebuilding my life one step at a time. Late April, I was reading in a cafe when I looked up and saw him across the street. Michael looked lost. Thinner. Older. Nervous. Our eyes met for one long second. Then he looked away first, ashamed, defeated. And in that moment I understood something with absolute clarity. He meant nothing to me anymore. He wasn't family. He wasn't an enemy. He was simply nobody. I went back to my book. When I looked up again, he was gone. 6 months after the discovery, my life was unrecognizable. I moved out of the old house. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a condo on the other side of the city. Modern, clean, mine. I furnished it exactly how I wanted. No compromises. No, our style. The walls filled with travel photos. Iceland. New Zealand. Japan. I used all those extra flight hours, all that pain, and turned it into something good. I traveled alone. No explanations owed to anyone. My social circle changed too. Marcus became one of my closest friends. We had dinner twice a week and hiked almost every weekend. Erin, Michael's ex, also became a good friend. We were connected by the shared betrayal, but that became background. Now we just got coffee and laughed, comparing terrible dating stories. "You look different," she told me once. "When I knew you at family dinners, you seemed heavier. Now you look light." I told her. And it was true. I started seeing someone. Alexa. 31. Flight attendant. Someone I met at work. Smart, funny, no drama. I told her everything on our third date. I figured if she was going to run, better to know early. Her response was simple. "Sounds like you dodged an entire life of misery." No pity. No scenes. Just honesty. We've been taking it slow for 2 months. No moving in, no exaggerated promises. Just enjoying each other and learning how to trust again. I didn't compare her to Catelyn. There was nothing to compare. July came. I was at a restaurant with friends, Marcus, Erin, and a few co-workers, celebrating Marcus's promotion, laughing at something stupid when I saw them walk in. My parents. And Michael. They didn't notice me right away. I watched them sit at a table across the room. Michael looked a little better than in April. He'd gained back some weight, but he still looked quiet, withdrawn. My mother talked too much, forcing conversation. My father looked tired, older than I remembered. Michael said something. My mother laughed too loud, fake. They were trying to pretend everything was normal. I shifted my attention back to my table. My friends were still telling a story and someone said something that made everyone burst out laughing. I laughed too, genuinely happy. I didn't approach my old family. I didn't need to. They were strangers. When we left, I passed near their table. My mother saw me, went pale, opened her mouth to say something. I kept walking. I didn't look at her. I didn't slow down. Outside, Alexa took my hand. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. And I was. That night, in the quiet, I replayed everything that had happened over the past year, not like an open wound but like a series of events now organized and filed away. I left behind a relationship built on a false idea. A bond that was never as solid as I believed. I also lost a brother who confused closeness with entitlement, and parents who couldn't hold me up when doing so was inconvenient. But it wasn't all loss. In the process, I regained something I didn't realize was at risk. My judgment. My ability to say, enough, without asking permission. I understood that affection that demands one-sided sacrifice isn't love, it's control wearing a mask. And peace bought at the price of dignity always costs too much. Over time, I learned that not every absence leaves a hole. Some absences clear the space you need to build something better. The people who stayed, friends I made along the way, even Aaron, didn't share my last name. But they shared something far more important: consistency, loyalty, real presence. I remembered the message Michael sent months earlier, talking about closure, like consequences were a loose end to tie up. He never got that answer, because closure isn't negotiated or begged for. It arrives when you stop waiting for explanations and decide to move forward without them. I had done that a long time ago. A year later, on the same date everything broke, I was in my own home, chosen, not inherited. Alexa and I were decorating a small tree. Simple. No forced rituals, no performances. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked, quietly curious. "Sometimes," I said, not with anger anymore, more like remembering a closed chapter. "Do you think they understood what happened?" I thought about averted eyes, fake conversations, silences that lasted too long. "I think they understand now," I said. "They just understood when they couldn't change anything anymore." She smiled and rested her head on my shoulder. Nothing else needed to be said. Today I'm 33. I live by my own rules. I work a job that challenges me and fulfills me. I travel when I want. I surround myself with people who don't ask me to shrink so others can feel comfortable. I share my time with someone who doesn't compete with my past or try to fix me. I didn't walk away from a family. I walked away from a system that only worked if I agreed to stay quiet. They chose a comfortable version of reality. I chose to take responsibility for mine. Some call it a rupture. I call it growth. And I wouldn't go back even if I could.